It's time to talk about the important issues for the natural state. And there's only one place to turn for that. Opportunity Arkansas's Nick Horton. You can find Nick's work at opportunityarkansas.org.
Hey, good Wednesday morning to you. Welcome back to First News. Just about 20 minutes in front of 8 o'clock. And in for Nick this morning is Jay Robertson, who is the Public Affairs Director with Opportunity Arkansas. And Jay, welcome back to the show. How are you this week?
Hey, Toby. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. Still recovering from session, trying to analyze what all happened, where things landed. But I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. We've got a lot of things that were passed. Some good things, some not so good things, but that's why we're here to sort through all that.
Well, one thing I wanted to ask about, which I didn't get to last week with when Nick was on with us, but I wanted to kind of, and so this is kind of where Nick and I left off last week, and it was with recapping the legislative session. We didn't really talk about the education bill that passed at the end of the session. I know Opportunity Arkansas gave the bill an F grade, and so can you kind of tell us what was in that bill and what Opportunity Arkansas didn't like about it, and then also how it got passed?
Yeah, absolutely. So this bill dealt with education freedom and specifically education freedom accounts, this program that was created just a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And just so folks understand, we were huge supporters of the LEARNS Act, which was passed in 2023.
Right.
It was really a landmark piece of legislation. And the reason we were so supportive of that is because at Opportunity Arkansas, we really focus on generational problems. And one of the biggest ones that's plagued our state is kids who are trapped in failing school districts that don't meet their needs. And for the first time, we've expanded education freedom to every kid in the state to say families can take those tax dollars that are assigned to their kids' education and direct them to wherever they need to get the best education for their kids, whether that's private school, homeschool, even another public school. But it's about trusting parents and putting parents in charge. Mm-hmm. And so our commitment this session, there's been a lot of people that don't like that support the status quo. And so there were several bills filed that would have effectively ended the program or really taken a step backwards. And so we were watching all of those, and thankfully most of those did not make it through the process.
Right.
But then towards the end of session, there was this other bill filed, Senate Bill 625, that would have made some changes to the program that really would make it harder for parents. And it was introduced very late in session when things were crazy at the Capitol. And we saw it immediately raise a lot of these concerns. And the bill ultimately was passed, but was amended significantly throughout the process. In its initial version, the bill would have really penalized parents for accusations of fraud. You know, there's been a lot of allegations of fraud in the program. Most of those unsubstantiated, and the language really would have penalized parents for anybody that might have misused funds, and then allowed the state to go after them through all means permitted by law. And we heard from parents about a lot of this language was just crazy punitive. I mean, this is a type of standard that doesn't exist in a lot of other government programs. It would have automatically removed kids from the program if they were expelled from a school. It would have shortened the enrollment period down to just 1 month. And, you know, if you look at this holistically, education freedom is about empowering parents and trusting parents. And the biggest concern we heard was how many parents were actually consulted about all these changes. Right. And judging by the number of parents that we heard from, not many. And so we sprung into action immediately, spoke with legislators, testified before the committee about these concerns. And the final version of the bill, thankfully, did address some of those by requiring that actual fraud has to be located before you're kicking kids out of the program, not just
a good thing.
Suspicion of fraud. Yep. The enrollment window was ultimately expanded from February to June 1st to give parents more time to actually get into the program as they're making decisions about where their kids are going to go to school for next year. Mm-hmm. It includes an appeals process so that if kids are kicked out of the program, they at least have the opportunity to appeal and explain why. Sure. And so the bill still places some restrictions on the program. And so I'll be clear that we're not, we still think this was somewhat of a step backwards, but thanks to all the other advocates that spoke up with us and parents that spoke up, The final version is not nearly as bad as it could be. And another key piece to the bill was that it places caps on certain expenses within the program, so that if parents who are homeschooling, for instance, want to use some of those dollars for extracurricular activities for their children, therapies, those are capped, and it would require parents to track those expenses. And that's just the kind of burdensome regulation that can make it difficult for parents to fully utilize the program, but can also make people even reluctant to apply for it in the first place if they think, hey, if I'm going to be accused of doing something wrong because I didn't track this down to the penny,
to run you off,
and then you're going to come after my tax return, that could be problematic.
Yeah. No. So did that change the grade at the end with the end result? Did it change it from like an F to a D or a C by the time it actually got passed?
Yeah, I think the final version was a D, and so it did improve it slightly. But, you know, the good news is we're going to be committed to seeing this through implementation. A lot of these things, you know, the legislature passes a bill that has kind of broad guidelines, but a lot of it comes down to how this is implemented in the interim period by the department, by administrative agencies. And so that's part of our role is we'll be tracking implementation and also working with families to see how these are actually impacting people, because ultimately the goal is to serve parents. Their tax dollars that are being put into these accounts for the purpose of educating their children. And so that'll be the next step in this process. And we're also encouraged by the fact that this program is working extremely well. I mean, there are over 15,000 families across the state that are using it right now.
That's right.
And just this year, we've seen applications exceed 30,000. So we're on pace to have more than double the amount of children accessing education freedom in the coming year.
Yeah,
and
that seems like a program that's working.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's not just about learning outcomes. Like that's part of it, but we've spoken to a lot of these families, and it's not just about their kids doing better on a test or getting more competent in the classroom. When they're in an environment that doesn't work, it's discouraging across all aspects of their life.
Yeah.
And when they're able to get into somewhere they can really thrive, it makes them more sociable, more outgoing, and it can just really completely change the trajectory of the children of the state. And that's why we're so supportive of the program.
Yeah. No, you guys have been big proponents of the LEARNS Act. Obviously been squarely behind it since the beginning, which is definitely appreciated. Jay, of course, you have a lot to do throughout the session with the non-debatable publication that you guys put out each week. Does that come out, does it come out from Opportunity Arkansas when Congress is not in session, or will we still see that publication periodically?
Yeah, we'll still be sending it out and providing updates. The pace will slow down a bit.
Sure.
You know, we're not going to be emailing every week because during session there's just so much to communicate and keep up with. And, you know, our goal is to connect taxpayers and everyday Arkansans who don't have time to go down to the Capitol and see what craziness is happening. Non-debatable is the insider newsletter where you can get the scoop on what's happening.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue that throughout the interim period. We're going to be sharing some news very soon about kind of our recap of the session, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We saw over 1,600 bills filed, over 1,000 bills that were actually passed into law.
It's crazy.
And so it's insane. And, you know, a lot of these, we won't know the full impact for months. And so non-debatable is the best way for people to stay up to date on what happened. We, as you know, track a lot of these bills that we selected as the most impactful that impact these generational problems. We had over 100 bills on our bill tracker. All that's updated. So if you go to our website, opportunityarkansas.org, we have a legislative center with the bill tracker, and you can see which of those actually ultimately got passed into law, which of those died, and where those landed. And we'll have a lot more to share on that soon.
Yeah, and of course, if you want to sign up for the non-debatable newsletter, you can go to nondebatable.com, you can go to opportunityarkansas.org, either one of those sites. You'll be able to sign up, get that delivered right to your email box whenever they put it out. It was coming out weekly during the session. As Jay said, it'll be a little more sporadic as information comes through when the state Congress is not in session. But, of course, you can see Jay and all of Opportunity Arkansas's work at OpportunityArkansas.org. And Jay, I appreciate you stopping by this morning, and we look forward to hearing what's going on with Opportunity Arkansas again next week. But appreciate the time today.
Thank you, Toby.